Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we are reviewing The Power of the Doctor, the final story of the Whittaker era. And it's pretty good. It's not perfect. It has its issues. We're going to talk about them. First off, this episode looks glorious. The visuals are very well done. It's one of the best looking episodes I've seen, especially in a long time. It looks really nice. I mean, just from the beginning with that sequence on the train, it just blows you away with its visuals. And all throughout the story, I was impressed with the camera work. I was impressed with the special effects. It looked really good. They really put, a budget into this. You could tell they put some money into it. And it looks really good. I think it fills its runtime well. It's an hour and a half, but it flies by. There's some Deus Machina stuff going on at the end, which, considering how full the story is, that's understandable. It didn't really bother me as much as it would at times. But I think it fills its runtime very well. Now, I like this story less for the story and more for things that happen in the story. The story itself, there are some problems. There's some stuff in there that probably doesn't need to be in there that could have been trimmed out. Again, it does have that Deus Machina stuff at the end going on. The whole thing with Rasputin didn't really need to be there. It didn't have to be Rasputin. I'm fine with it. It's interesting. I figured that was going to be more of a payoff than it was, but I'm fine with it. I love when they start playing the Rasputin song. I'm not actually familiar with that song, but I got a kick out of it, and it feels very in character with this version of the Master to do, kind of a throwback to Sims. I was enjoying that scene. It was kind of cheesy, but it was that good cheese. I was embracing it and enjoying it. That's one thing I've got to say. Sacha Dhawan is the Master in this. He is stealing the show for a lot of it, especially almost every time he's on screen, he is commanding the room. His presence and his acting in this special is phenomenal. My hat's off to Sacha Dhawan in this. I doubt he'll ever see this video, but if he does, my hat's off, sir. You did a phenomenal job. You know, to me, it's not over the top. It's not hammy. It's not scene chewing, but it's almost that, but in a good way. The energy that he puts out. You know, this is a very energetic Doctor, but there's this menace to him that you never quite know what he's going to do. Like when he's the Doctor with Yaz, there's always that, is he going to kill Yaz? Is he going to kill Yaz? Is he going to talk to her? You know, I'm always waiting to see if he's going to turn around and just kill her. You know, because it looked like in the trailer at one point he was holding a little doll maybe of her. So I kept wondering, any second he just might be like, I'm your new Doctor now. You know? And he even said things to encourage that, like, I'd hate to have to bring you down to size. So I was waiting that whole time wondering, man, this is a dude who could sit there and be right in the middle of telling you a joke and just decide, you know what, I'm going to kill you. Very much like the Joker, which works when he does that mock TARDIS with ha 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 ha. Very Joker vibe. You never quite know with the Joker if he's making a joke or if he's about to kill you, or both. So I really like Sacha as the Master in this. Phenomenal job. 13 is good in this. I think Jodie Whittaker puts in a pretty good performance here. This is one of her best performances. I do think as she has played the role more, she got better at performing it. I had a lot of issues with her acting in Series 11, but she has progressively gotten better in the role. And I think she's actually pretty good in the role here. She does her lines well. She's gotten her Doctor's personality and characterizations down at this point. She knows what makes her Doctor tick. And not every fan will agree with liking that personality and that characterization, but what she's doing, she's got down. I enjoy. It's hard when you're cramming the Cybermen, the Daleks, and the Master all into one story. Were they all necessary? No, you didn't have to have the Cybermen. You didn't have to have the Daleks. It's neat that they're there for this kind of special, because at the end of the day, again, the story itself is good without being great. It's the fact that this is more of a celebration of Doctor Who, almost like a special. To me, it's a lot like Journey's End was, whereas I find Journey's End a bit silly, a bit over the top, but it's almost like a celebration of the Russell T Davies era. And so it works when you take into account that it's kind of giving itself a little pat on the back in a good way and taking a victory lap. To me, that's kind of how this is. This is a story celebrating really not only the Whittaker era, but Doctor Who. And even classic Who, even more so I think than Day of the Doctor. This is celebrating all of Doctor Who. So it's kind of taking a victory lap. And this one the victory lap feels better than most of the era. I think this episode is definitely better than most of the Whittaker era. I like the fact that this story feels more like an anniversary special encompassing all of Doctor Who than Day of the Doctor did. Because Day of the Doctor, you can make the argument that it felt more like a celebration of modern Who, of new Who, than it did of Doctor Who as a whole. I think there's a fair argument to be made there. Whereas this one goes out of its way to really embrace the classic show and to acknowledge the classic fans. And it doesn't feel hollow and cheap to me. It feels like it's integrated into the story very well. So while it hits those member berries, it does it well. It's not just done for the sake of doing it. It actually has very powerful moments. It does that really well. I think Yaz is fine in this one. It's been interesting to watch Yaz grow. She hasn't got as much growth as I would have liked, but it's interesting to watch her, having watched her grow, what we've gotten of her. I enjoy seeing Ace and Tegan back. Sophie and Janet do a really good job. I'm really happy with them. Ace, to me, isn't quite perfect. She's great. I especially love her at the beginning. She does feel more like a matured version of Ace, but there is the part when she puts the jacket on where she acts a little more like a teenager than I think was necessary. I still like it because, again, I'm treating it as an anniversary, as a celebration. I'm liking all of the fan service. And that's really what it is. It's done as fan service in a good way, so it's not a complaint I'm making. It's simply more just something I'm noting, that she does kind of revert to more of her 80s self, her teenage self. And even in universe, that could be because she's seeing the Doctor again, so mentally she's kind of going back to that. But it was something where I didn't quite feel like I was watching a woman in, say, her 50s. I felt more like I was watching a woman who thought she was still 18. But Sophie's performance is phenomenal. Let me get that clear. I love Sophie. Her performance is phenomenal. And again, it is a little fan servicey with the jacket. I don't think she necessarily needed to wear the jacket. I was excited she wore the jacket. She didn't really need to wear the jacket. It seems a little odd. Love the fact she's got the bat. Love the fact she got to beat up the Dalek. Yes, I love that she got to beat up the Dalek. So I still do enjoy that a lot. Tegan, I think, is nailed perfectly. Janet Fielding just slips into that role so well. And don't get me wrong, Sophie and Janet have been playing these in Big Finish for years. They're old hats at these characters, although they're not usually playing older versions of them like they are now. But Janet is great as Tegan. This is exactly how I can imagine Tegan being as an older woman. I think she nails Tegan perfectly. I love Tegan in this. She still has that kind of feminist streak. She has that kind of grumpy, I don't take crap from anybody streak. The fact she's been married and divorced a couple times doesn't surprise me. I like the fact she's got an adopted son she's annoyed that she hasn't seen in 6 weeks. I can see her holding the grudge with the Doctor. I feel like Tegan is perfectly written and acted in this and is performed superbly. And it's wonderful to see them back. And I love the fact that, Ace and Tegan get on so well. Because I've never seen them together before. So I love the fact they seem to get on. Just click. They just click. I like that. I really, really enjoy that. I love when they're on screen together. I love that Tegan doesn't go with Ace. The fact that she's about to leave with Ace and parachute down, but she doesn't. And I feel like this is, of course, a nod to Adric, because Tegan has that trauma with the Cybermen because, of course, Adric died when Earthshock. And I feel like that's why she doesn't want to leave Kate and anyone else alone. That hits her hard. So that scene when she's standing at the door and she goes back to help Kate, I feel like that is a direct correlation with, she doesn't want to lose anybody like she lost Adric. That is on her mind, which of course it talks about later, but even when I was watching that happen on screen, I was thinking about Adric, and I think the way Janet acts that part right there on that rooftop is beautiful and perfect. I absolutely enjoy that. The story bit at the train at the beginning goes on a little longer than it needs to. It looks beautiful. It goes on a little longer than it needs to. It really only establishes the Cyber Masters. I never really liked the Time Lords as Cybermen, I'll be honest. I don't really care for that. But, you know, it's here, so. Although their design in this one I like a lot better than I did in Timeless Children. Basically it gives an excuse for Dan to leave because he's like, hey, you can get killed doing this, even though he's been through that several other times and been fine with it. And then I guess it fills a little bit of time. And it shows the little girl being kidnapped, which of course I think a lot of us was like, oh, is this the past Doctor? Is this the Timeless Child? I think it purposely does that misdirection. Much like even the trailer itself did a lot of misdirection because, oh, is that Mondos attacking Earth? Oh, seismic activity. Is that Salamander? The trailer did a lot actually about misdirecting. I liked that. So the opening scene doesn't quite seem necessary, but it looks good. I like it, and it gives us kind of one last little mini adventure with the 13 crew before everything kind of starts ramping up. The Master taking over the Doctor is interesting. I can't say that I think it's pulled out of nowhere because there are things in Doctor Who that account for this, like forced regeneration we know is a thing because that's what happened to the second Doctor. I don't think when the Master says, what the gravest penalty for transgressing our laws is, to me I don't agree with that line simply because the second Doctor seems shocked when they announced it. Your appearance has changed for it, we'll do so again. Wait, what? He seemed shocked when they announced that. I feel like that was something decided for him personally, not just a law they had. But I like the fact that they're reaching back to that lore and basically connecting with what happened to the second Doctor here with forced regeneration. And even the scene when the Master they're in the two booths and the Master is, copying himself onto the Doctor. To me, I know some people compare that to the End of Time booths where Tennant gets fatal radiation. For me, it reminds me more of the TV movie when the Master is trying to steal the Doctor's lives at the end of the TV movie. So it's like even Power of the Doctor is even giving a nod to the TV movie. Because that's honestly a lot what the Master was trying to do. Who knows, maybe the Master, if he completed it in the TV movie, would have inserted himself into the Doctor's body instead of just stealing his lives. So to me, that's a direct parallel to the TV movie with the Master trying to basically become the Doctor, steal his lives. That's interesting. Seeing Sacha Dhawan in the Doctor's outfit's funny, I will admit. And I love when he dresses up in all of the Doctor's clothes. You got McCoy's vest and Tom's scarf and Tennant's tie that looks like Troughton's shirt. The fifth Doctor's celery, Troughton's recorder. That's hilarious. And it's like the Master is trying to literally mock and parody the Doctor by taking all of the most ridiculous aspects of his wardrobe over the years and wear it on, put it on. I'm the Doctor. It's funny. It's nice fan service while also making sense to the story. There's a lot of this in here where there's fan service, but it makes sense to the story pretty well. And I enjoy that here. I like Yaz taking the initiative and just shoving him out of the TARDIS and leaving. Yaz does a lot here. I like the fact that she brings back out the post-it notes for steering the TARDIS. I like the fact she can steer the TARDIS to a degree. That's neat. I enjoyed that. I did like that. There's a lot of little lines. There's no way I will remember them all. There's too many. But I like the little Easter eggs that they say, like when he first captures the Doctor and he's like, I guess I call it the Master Dalek Plan, or the Cyber Master. And it's basically, of course, a play on words to the Dalek's Master Plan, referencing the Dalek's Master Plan. So I enjoyed that. That was a funny little line. And it seems like something this version of the Master would say. I really like this version of the Master. Especially in this story. I mean, I know a lot of people will be like, well, he's not Delgado. Oh, he's not supposed to be Delgado. Much like how Jodie Whittaker's not the fourth Doctor. You know, each incarnation is different. So I don't expect this Master to be Delgado. They're different. You know, little things like when the one guy's like, "You are the Master and I will obey you." A nice throwback to that line, you know, "I am the Master and you will obey me." And I like later when he's the Doctor, he's like, "I am the Doctor, I am the Doctor, and you will obey me." I was enjoying those little nods, to the Easter eggs there to Classic Who, the little bit of fan service. They put little smiles on my face. I was really enjoying that. And of course, when the Doctor is in that in-between area at the edge and she encounters the classic Doctors, that is a beautiful way to incorporate the classic Doctors. I absolutely loved that scene. I actually had a similar idea myself. That little area in the Doctor's head he goes to in Heaven Sent when he's in his own TARDIS. I've always said that would be a perfect place for him to encounter another Doctor. Like, say, if he was stumped on a problem and just needed to work it out, you know, in his mind, he could have a conversation with one of his older selves. Like maybe the TARDIS would appear as the classic TARDIS instead of, you know, the current TARDIS, and he could talk to one of the other Doctors. That'd be a great way to bring back past Doctors. That was always an idea I had in my head. So it's nice to see something similar like that realized here, where, you know, he's talking to all of these other incarnations of the Doctor. I mean, how awesome is it to see Paul McGann on screen as the Doctor? I mean, I know it's not like a whole lot, but he's still phenomenal when he's there, and he still feels like the 8th Doctor. I love that little line. "I don't wear robes," and McCoy's just like, "There's always one. I'm a manifestation of our consciousness. I can wear what I like." And McCoy's just, I like seeing all of them. I mean, we have Colin Baker in an episode of Doctor Who in 2022. There's some vindication for Colin Baker right there. To get that phone call, "We want you to come back and be on Doctor Who." And the fans are, So, you know, first seeing David Bradley, who does a wonderful first Doctor in this story, I might add, wonderful first Doctor. And to see it flipping between, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, I love that scene. They get some great screen time. I love the fact it's just classic Doctors. You know, of course, you know, you miss seeing Tom, but they did try to get Tom. I've done some reading on it. They asked Tom to come. He just wasn't available. I don't know if it was just his health or if he had other stuff going on, or if he just honestly wasn't interested. You know, he might still, you know, he's 88 years old. He might still be concerned about, you know, uncouth stuff going on. But I like the fact they did reach out. They did ask. They did attempt to get him. That's all you can do. So I would have loved to have seen him there, that's not on them. They did try to get him. It's great seeing him, though. I do love that scene, especially right when she gets back in her body and they all are like, "Good luck, Doctor," and it's flashing between all of their faces. And that last face is that wonderful picture of like David Bradley, who's very much doing a William Hartnell smile, that smile William Hartnell does when he's, it really captures that pretty well. That's a phenomenal scene. It really did make me smile. And of course, the heart of the episode for me was, of course, when Tegan and Ace got to meet and talk with their respective Doctors with the AI program. I love when the AI program popped in. I think this is a great way to have Whittaker still in her episode. Since it is her final episode, she really does need to be in it. So even while her Doctor is sidelined in that other area with the classic Doctors, while the Master's running around her body, I love the fact that we still have this AI version of Whittaker running around. So Whittaker gets more screen time, can still do stuff. And I like the fact that she is very much, you know, the Doctor just in computer form. You know, she saved all of her memories into this computer AI. One, again, it gives Whittaker a lot to do, but two, it gives us a way to have a moment with Tegan and the 5th Doctor and a moment with Ace and the 7th Doctor, and for it to make sense in the story. So it's not just fan service for the sake of being fan service. It also makes sense in the story for that to happen. That's a great way of accomplishing both of those scenes. And let me tell you, like I'm tearing up just starting to talk about it. Those two moments made my eyes water. They literally had my eyes watering up with tears in them. They are so beautifully done. And of course, Tegan's happens first, so you're not expecting it. But when tearing up, when I see it, the AI flicker from 13 into 5 to when it completely switches into 5, I was just gobsmacked. And that conversation they have is beautiful. That is a wonderfully written, wonderfully acted scene. When because this whole episode she's been frustrated. It's been 38 years. He's never come back for her to talk to her, to see her, and so she's upset. So when he says that, I never forget any of you. I remember everything. That is such a beautiful moment. And then when she does that line about, well, what do you think I'm thinking right now with all these Cybermen running around? And he just looks at her and he's like, Patrick. That is so beautiful. That is such a beautiful scene. I cannot put into words. And then she tells him, I missed you. And he just tells her, I've missed you too. Try not to get killed. I like that. That's a wonderful scene. And I like that there's actually a couple parts right there. One, when he says Adric, and when he says I missed you too, where the hologram's a little more solid. It doesn't look as hologrammy. It solidifies a bit, and the voice doesn't quite have that robotic echo where he's actually like more there. That's wonderful how they execute that. But the fact that, and it's the same thing with the Seventh Doctor. Let me talk about this one a little more first. The fact that it conveys so much emotion in that one word. Let me go ahead and talk about McCoy, actually. I'll circle back to that. And then getting the same thing with Ace and 7, which we kind of, after it happens with 5, it's going to happen with 7, but it's still wonderful because it doesn't happen immediately. When she first appears, she is talking to Ace as 13 about the Nitro 9. But when it cuts to that front shot of 13 and it switches to 7, and I love the 7th Doctor and Ace. I think there's a lot of people out there, that are huge fans of 7 and Ace, and there are people out there that their favorite Doctor matchup is 7 and Ace. They're just so iconic. So for them to have this moment together, and when he tells her, all that stuff he tells her about, blowing things up is never acceptable, but sometimes you don't have a choice, which is why McCoy did a lot of the things he did. He felt it was the best way to do them, All children leave sooner or later, the joy is watching them fly. And of course, at the end, when it does that part about, so we're good? Oh, we're more than good. We're Ace, and he smiles at her. That's beautiful. It's so touching for him to say that, since of course that's one of her lines. That's beautiful, beautiful. And because even in extended media, like even in A Childhood's End, which I read just recently for the first time, we know that 7 and Ace a lot of times, and a lot of the extended media didn't part on the best of circumstances. So it's nice to find out that while that is what happens here, that they sort of reconcile, even though it is just the AI, that they sort of reconcile. Those are both beautiful, beautiful scenes that even if you aren't aware of their era, aware is not the right word. If you haven't seen their eras, maybe you're more of a modern Who fan, you don't really watch much of classic Who, the way those scenes are done, the way they're written, the way the music is done there, because I really like the score for this story as well. The music in this special is very, very good. Very good. You can still get the emotional impact from it. You might not get it as much as us who have lived through these eras and watched these eras, but you can still get the emotional punch going on here. Much like, it's a lot like School Reunion. You don't have to have seen classic Who to get the emotional connection those characters have in School Reunion, that the Doctor and Sarah Jane have in School Reunion. The episode is written so well and shot so well, and David Tennant and Elizabeth Sladen do such a good job playing these characters that you get the emotional bond they have and the connection they have and how close they were just from school reunion. And that's exactly how it plays here. You don't have to have seen the Fifth Doctor's era or the Seventh Doctor's era to feel the impact of those scenes, because they're done so well. They're written so well. They're acting so well. You have 4 actors who are performing at top level. And they're friends in real life. I mean, and they see each other all the time at conventions and doing Big Finish, so, you know, they stay in contact. I absolutely love any time TARDIS Team 5 is on behind the sofa. They get on so well together. And, of course, Sylvester McCoy and Sophie Aldred get on super well. So, I mean, Sylvester literally saved her life once. They get on so well together. And that comes across, that rapport, that bond comes across in those scenes. I mean, the gut punch, when Tegan asked him, you know, what am I thinking right now with all these Cybermen running around? And the Fifth Doctor just goes, Adric, I can't tell you that how much that hit me. And Adric's not even a popular companion. He's one of my least favorite companions. I really like Adric with 4. I don't really care for much for Adric with 5. But, of course, Earthshock is such an iconic moment because it's not often in Classic Who that a companion died. That was a big deal. But, you know, to me, that's a gut punch for 2 ways. One, because what's happening with Tegan now is paralleling a tragic event in her life when she lost someone close to her because of an enemy, like the Cybermen. And so it fits. But 2, keeping in mind that Adric is also the Fifth Doctor's last word before he regenerates in caves. And maybe that's one of the reasons he was hallucinating seeing Adric, is he always felt that guilt over Adric's death. So while Tegan is also feeling guilt with the Cybermen there, that hologram, which has all of the Doctor's memories, is probably feeling that same guilt. And so that one word conveys so much for 2 reasons, not just Earthshock, but also the Caves of Androzani. There's so much in one word, and the fact that they can get that kind of response in one word, it's a lot like in The Snowmen, the Christmas special, The Snowmen, when Madame Vastra is testing that version of Clara. Yep, you can say everything you want, anything you need to say, but you have to say it in one word. When she does that one word test, convey everything you need to say in one word. And this scene does that. It passes that test. It gets everything it needs to say and the emotional bits of the moment in that one word. Adric. Gut punch. And then, of course, when he says Braveheart, you know, those scenes choked me up so much. I mean, it's doing it now, just thinking about it. And I've gone back and rewatched those scenes multiple times. They're beautiful. They're fan service, but they make sense in the story. They give closure for these characters. Closure that we've waited decades for, because I've seen Resurrection of the Daleks. I know Tegan's goodbye. And from expanded media, we've known that Ace and the Seventh Doctor didn't always end well either. So to get that kind of closure for both of them is wonderful. And I've talked about that a lot. Those are powerful moments for me. It's nice seeing Kate back. It was kind of odd to me that she surrendered, because I don't trust the Cybermen to let the rest of her people go. I get she was doing it to buy time for Tegan, but it seemed a little out of character for Kate. I am happy to see Kate back. She is good in this. I think Jinma, is that her name? The actress who plays Kate does a really good job as Kate. The ending is interesting. I do like 13 at the end when she thwarts the Master and she's like, you gambled and you lost. I like how she stands up to him. She's very self-confident there when she's basically chewing him out right before the Master turns the beam on her. I did enjoy her acting right there when she stands up and is like, you tried, you lost, you failed, I win. And then, of course, the Master being the Master, if I can't be the Doctor, neither can you. Because that's a very Master thing to do. It's not the first time the Master has caused the Doctor's regeneration. Because I don't think he wants to kill the Doctor. He just wants to punish her by forcing her to regenerate. So, if I can't be the Doctor, neither can you. It's not saying, I'm going to kill you and make you dead, but I'm going to force you to regenerate. So when he turns that beam on her, It's basically just killing the 13th Doctor. He's making her regenerate so she has to be someone else. That's his last little poke at her. I wasn't expecting just that big explosion. It's pretty cool though. I enjoy it. I don't understand why Yaz has to leave. I mean, I guess what they're trying to say is since her Doctor's about to die, it won't be the same and she'll want to go. But the fact that the Doctor's like, oh, I'm about to regenerate. How about one last adventure? Well, I wasn't ready to leave yet, but we'll give you ice cream. You know, I mean, there's several companions who have been companions across multiple Doctors. You know, Perry, sort of. Tegan, sort of. Nyssa, sort of. And of course, Mel. I mean, it's not the first time, you know, Ben and Polly. So I don't understand why just because she's changing, she has to basically make Yaz leave. And, unless it's because she just wants to regenerate alone, which is very, very much that Doctor. So I don't quite buy the making Yaz leave thing. Although their little scene at the end is touching. I liked it. It was fine. I kind of don't like that Yaz dropped everybody off before the Doctor woke up because I figured everybody, especially Ace and Tegan, would want to be able to talk to the Doctor a little bit. Now, I get why Yaz did it because the 13th Doctor is not a social butterfly. She is very introverted. And so Yaz doing that was probably for 13's benefit. I get that, and that makes sense, because Yaz does get the 13th Doctor's character. But I figured the others would be like, no, we want to see her when she wakes up, you know. So I'm a little surprised about that. I loved the scene at the end with all of the companions. That's beautiful. I mean, I'm not even a big Mel fan, but seeing Mel was great. Of course, I loved seeing Joe. I love Katie. Katie's amazing. So I loved seeing Joe there. And then Ian! We got Ian. They actually got William Russell. Bless him. William Russell is like 97 years old and he's there. And even though he's only there for like a minute, he's there. I love seeing him. I mean, you have, you know, in the latest episode of Doctor Who, you had someone who was in the very first episode of Doctor Who. Someone who was there from the beginning, from the very beginning. That's amazing. That was wonderful to see. And I love his line. Wait a minute, did you say her? That was funny. I loved that. That made me chuckle. And William just says it so well. Like, wait, what? I love that. And just seeing him, even for that, just for that little moment, put such a smile on my face. The same thing with Joe. Even though they didn't have a lot of lines, I was so happy to see them. That was a wonderful little thing. And I love the idea of a kind of a companions assemble. Companions assemble, you know, companions united, the companions working together. Now, I would have liked to have seen, like, Martha, Mickey. I mean, I get why Mickey's not there, everything with Noel Clarke. I get that. But I would have liked to have seen, like, Martha there or something, too, of course. But again, maybe they're still reaching out, trying to find people, and this is just the first few people they could find. It was a wonderful little scene. I like 13's regeneration. It's not long-winded like, say, especially the Capaldi one. I like Smith's regeneration. I like Capaldi's regeneration. They do tend to go on a bit, especially Capaldi's. I like the fact that 13's is shorter, and it feels very fitting for 13. Her Doctor would want to regenerate alone. I get that. I need to do this next bit alone. That's very in character for her. She is more introverted than most, so that feels in character. I love the fact it takes place out of the TARDIS. I enjoy her lines, you know, look after the next one. It's a well-written scene. It's done well. I like her standing on that little, wherever she is, I forget where it is. You know, that's beautiful, getting one last view at the sunrise. Her last lines are very fitting for her Doctor. Like, you know, the tag you're it. That's not something that would have happened in Classic Who. It's not a line that would have been said in Classic Who. But for the 13th Doctor, it's very fitting for her character. So, you know, I like her, you know. No, I wish I had more time, you know, I get that, you know, and I'll bet it's going to be wonderful. And she goes, okay, Doctor, whoever you are. That was nice. I like that. Tag, you're it. I like that. It doesn't go on. She's not long-winded about it. She's not upset about the change. She embraces the change. That's beautiful. Like most classic Doctors, it's just part of the Time Lord's life cycle. They embrace it. It's time, you know. And the regeneration itself is cool. I like the fact that it's not too over the top like a lot of the modern ones are. It's just that kind of really nice round shot it does over, and then it clicks to that kind of close-up where we see her turn into Tennant, which is nice. You know, we didn't quite know. I figured it was either going to be Gatwa or Tennant, but we didn't know which. I love the fact the clothes change. And some people seem boggled by this, like, this is a first. And I, of course, being, you know, an old school Doctor Who fan, am like, no, it's not. This is not a first. Because, of course, the first Doctor's clothes regenerate into the second Doctor's clothes during the very first regeneration. So technically, this regeneration is actually keeping up with more of a precedent set by the original regeneration. Now, they don't go out of their way in the original regeneration to point this out, but yes, the first Doctor's clothes regenerate into the second Doctor's clothes. So this isn't a new thing, and people who are more familiar with the lore aren't going to be as, wait, what? As some of the fandom is. I thought it was neat because it would look kind of weird to see Tennant in Jodie's outfit. I like this. It gives us more of a sense of familiarity seeing him in his sorta more traditional outfit. So I liked seeing the clothes regenerate as he regenerated. One, again, there's a precedent for it. Two, it fits. And two, I like that the regeneration at the end there looked more like a burning away of the old. Instead of just changing, it looked like it was just burning away of the old. The 13th Doctor was burning away to give way to the 14th Doctor. I like that regeneration effect. And I loved Tennant's little dialogue at the end. His, you know, I know these teeth. It's a nice little Easter egg while making sense. As soon as I saw him doing that kind of, I was like, oh, he's going to make a comment about the teeth. He says, I know these teeth. I'm like, yes, you do. And then, of course, he does the what. And I love that. Is it fan servicey? Yes. Yes, it is. But it's still wonderful and great and acceptable. And what? I love that. Who didn't get excited about that? Come on. I love that moment. It's a great send-off. And even though we're only getting Tennant back for 3 specials, it is wonderful to see him again. He's a phenomenal actor just in general. I do enjoy the 10th Doctor. I'm curious to see how the 14th Doctor... So they have confirmed that David Tennant is the 14th Doctor and Ncuti Gatwa is the 15th Doctor. They have officially said that. I'm looking forward to this limited amount of time we will get with the 14th Doctor and learning his in and outs and how he's like the 10th Doctor, how he's different than the 10th Doctor. I am looking forward to that. I enjoyed the regeneration scene, and I very much enjoyed the little bit we got with the 14th Doctor afterwards. I'm really excited about Tennant coming back. Interesting things they didn't touch on, and I like the fact that Chibnall did not try to cram these in. The fact it doesn't touch on the Timeless Children at all. I will give props to that because this is such a big episode. I like the fact they didn't try to shoehorn that in. I will give Chibs credit for that. I like the fact they just kind of left that. The Yaz and the Doctor thing, I figured they would touch on that more. And it touches on it without saying it. It shows you instead of tells you, which is something the Chibnall era has been bad about. You know, instead it's exposition. Don't tell me, show me. It does that here. While it doesn't really talk about their relationship, if you pay attention to their interactions and their reactions, it conveys that. Like how upset Yaz is that the Doctor is dying. You know, I actually think Mandit does a really good job acting there when she first realizes she's about to regenerate. And her face gets extremely upset because her Doctor is dying, basically. It does that really well. I've never been the biggest fan of that relationship, not because I think that relationship is inherently a bad idea, but the fact that they try to fit it in so late in the era and in the show's run, the era's run, that it doesn't have time to develop properly. It feels shoehorned in. It's like something that the fans shipped and they're like, yeah, let's do that. And so it never had time to properly develop. So you can't just, right at the end of an era, go, oh yeah, the Doctor and the Yaz do have feelings for each other, sorta. And you know, you can't just cram it in that fast and expect people to love it the way they do the scenes with the 7th Doctor and Ace and Tegan and the 5th Doctor. The reason why those two scenes hit so hard, with McCoy and Sophie and Janet and Peter when they're talking in the episode, is because those characters and those relationships have built up over time, decades. And they've had time to grow. And we know they ended in a bad place. And we've wondered what's happened with them. There is a history there with the 5th Doctor and Tegan and the 7th Doctor and Ace. A long history. And it's something fans have wanted to see for a long time. So it had that time to grow and mature and feel like a real relationship. So when those moments happen, they've earned the emotional impact that those moments carry. And God knows, me and I'm sure a lot of other people, we felt them. Like I said, those are the scenes in the episodes that made me tear up. And because they've earned them, because they have that history and they have that development. And the reason why I don't get it with Yaz and 13 nearly as much is because they haven't. That relationship was rushed. It wasn't. If they had started that relationship in series 11 and it had time to grow, it would have felt more realistic to me, and I would have had more of a reaction to it. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are plenty of Doctor Who fans who probably are newer to the show, who maybe the Jodie era was their first era, or maybe they connected with the 13th Doctor, and they did get the emotional impact from Yaz and the Doctor, because that's something they've been shipping and wanting since series 11. And that's cool. If you got the emotional impact from that, then you got the emotional impact from that. But for me, it was more with the classic series, someone who grew up with these classic characters. I got the emotional impact from seeing Tegan with 5 and Ace with 7. And I'm sure a lot of the other classic fans, or even modern Who fans who went back and watched the classic series, because there are plenty of people who have started with Modern Who has been around long enough that people who started with Modern Who as children have grown up and they have gone back and they have watched the classic show so they can experience more of this character they love. And, they can get the emotional impact from those scenes. I find it interesting to me that 2 of the most emotional moments in the Jodie Whittaker era, in the whole Whittaker era, between a Doctor and their companion, aren't scenes with the 13th Doctor. They're scenes with, symbolically at least, the 5th Doctor and Tegan and the 7th Doctor and Ace. I think that's very telling about the 13th Doctor and the way she's been written in a lot of her era, that it's 2 of the most emotional impacts that the Doctor has had with their companions has been, even though it's computer AI, symbolically the 5th Doctor with Tegan and the 7th Doctor with Ace, where the Doctor is comforting them. It's a far cry from, Doctor, I'm worried my cancer might come back. Oh, I don't know what to say. I'm just going to go over here and pretend I said something. What? That's not the Doctor. That's not the Doctor. That's not what the Doctor would do. That's a far cry from the 2nd Doctor talking to Victoria, comforting her when her father had died. And you'll forget. No, I won't ever forget. Oh, yes, you will. It's interesting to me that the computer AI in this story feels more like the Doctor than the 13th Doctor did at times in her run, especially infamously that scene with Graham, where, yes, the 5th Doctor is comforting Tegan here. I never forget. I remember all of you. I never forget any of you. I remember everything. And the 7th Doctor, when he's comforting Ace, and obviously I guess things never change, and he makes that speech about, all children leave eventually. The joy is watching you fly. To me, that's also really touching, because the 7th Doctor, much like the 4th Doctor, they're not the most emotionally open. The 7th Doctor is sterner and harder on Ace, a lot of times for her own good, like what he does, what he puts her through in Curse of Fenric and in Ghostlight, because he's doing it for her own good. So he doesn't have necessarily that tender side you see as much. So to see him showing that tender, almost parental emotion toward her here is very touching, because that's not typically how he was with her. So for him to show that to her is beautiful. And is, I think, again, 2 of the best moments this whole Whittaker era has had of a Doctor being there for their companions. And it's I can't articulate properly how telling that is, that it took other Doctors besides 13 to do that. Even here, when she's regenerating with Yaz, I feel like she's not as open with Yaz here. It's more just, let's go get ice cream, and I don't want to go. They have a nice talk, but it's not she doesn't fully open up to Yaz, even here, even though they're saying goodbye. Whereas I felt much more of being open with 7 and 5, and I think that's very telling. It's wonderful to see these Classic Doctors back. I will give Chris Chibnall his deserved pat on the back for this story. I have been very critical of him as showrunner. I've been critical of the Whitaker era. I've talked about the things I've liked. I've talked about the things I didn't like. I have done videos about the positives of the era. I've done videos about the negative of the era and of the 13th Doctor. But while the story itself has flaws, some of it's not necessary. Again, I don't think you need the Cybermen, Daleks, and all of that. It acts as a celebration of Doctor Who so well that I am willing to forgive that because it does so many things right. It hits these wonderful nostalgia beats while integrating them into the story in clever ways. That I have to give Chris Chibnall his pat on the back here. Now, don't get me wrong, the other hand might be kind of shoving him out the door, but that one hand is giving him a couple pats on the back. This is one of the best stories, I think, of his era. I even like 13 in it. I think Jodie does a good job playing it, but I will admit it pleasantly surprised me. I didn't know how I was going to think of it, and the way it acts more as a celebration of Doctor Who as a whole, I think, than even Day of the Doctor. I love the fact that it has so much in there for the classic fans. It's almost like Chibnall is apologizing to the classic fans. And maybe even remembering that he himself is a classic fan. That I think if you're a classic Doctor Who fan, you should enjoy it. There are definitely moments in here that you're going to enjoy. It is a good story. I very much enjoyed my watch through of it. I've been watching 2 or 3 reactions from it. I really enjoyed Jess's reaction. Seska says she's my favorite Doctor Who reactor. She's phenomenally good. I really enjoyed her reaction to it. And even though she doesn't understand the context of some of the things going on, she hasn't gotten to 82 yet, but she still gets the emotional impact from those moments because those moments are done so well in the episode. It's a fantastic story. Again, not perfect. It has issues, but I can gloss over those because I love so much of what is going on. All of the stuff from the classic show that's integrated in there is integrated really well. Definitely has those gut punch moments. So, the power of the Doctor. I would like to know what you thought of it, and what you thought of this review, and if there were any moments that really jumped out at you. You know, what did you think of seeing Davison with Tegan and seeing McCoy with Ace? Did that tear you up a bit? Wasn't that a beautiful, beautiful moment? So comment down below and let me know. Other things to do while I have you here. Go ahead and click that like button, click that subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to contribute to what I do, there's a link to that down in the description below. I want to give a shout out to a couple of my top tier patrons, Stephen and Colin. I appreciate their continued support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. I really appreciate everything. I have a P.O. box down there as well if there's anything you'd like to send, as well as a link to my Amazon wish list. Lots of goodies on there. And most importantly, thank you for watching.